Hey everyone, this is Jim Horn, and this is another edition of Travers Talk. Last week, I listened to Corey LeCureux. He is the director of Central Dispatch here in Grand Traverse County, and he talked about the new AI simulation for non-emergency calls here in Traverse City. And I thought it was such an interesting presentation. I thought I'd have him on the podcast again because everybody's got some lingering questions about this new application, this new thing, AI simulation we're going to be using for non-emergency calls. Anyway, I asked Corey to come on the podcast, and he said, sure thing. So here he is. Corey, it's good to have you on the show. And I was talking to Corey before the show started. And he survived the heat wave over at 400 Boardman when the air conditioning system went out.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, you did. Wow. He said it was 89 degrees in his office or right outside. That's a tough working environment.
Yeah, it was hot. Luckily, dispatch, where they're actually taking the calls and operating the radios, we have a backup air conditioning system that's in there in case of emergencies. That kicked in and kept things tolerable for it. It would be awful to be in 89 degrees for 12 hours and be taking everybody's emergency calls. And so luckily we were able to keep the temp down in there for those guys.
Yeah, one of the emergency calls would have come from within the building, probably. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to have Corey back on and go do a little bit deeper dive into the AI simulation that's going to be used for non-emergency calls. Now, folks, I said on one of the podcasts, non-emergency calls. So don't get all bent out of shape here. It's not for the real stuff, the hardcore 9/11 where there's a real emergency. But I think Corey did a great job on the presentation. And I think the first part of your presentation, Corey, and I'm going to play it here for the listeners because I thought it was great. I thought it set the stage perfectly for explaining the non-emergency calls to the County Board of Commissioners. So let me run this tape and let's listen to it.
Your 911 director, I am not here to talk to you about 911. I'm here to talk to you about fireworks. When can we shoot fireworks? Can you stop my neighbor from shooting fireworks? Can you stop the Sherry Festival from shooting fireworks? My dog has anxiety. Where do I find help for that? Where do I pay my property taxes? Can you help me to find a lawyer? Where do I get legal advice from? Can you give me legal advice? Can you send that cute deputy back out here?
There you go. I thought that was one of the best introductions that I've heard since I've been closely following the County Board of Commissioners. It led into the story. Everybody truly understood what the situation is with the 9/11 calls. So let's talk about the AI simulation and how is it going to burnout? I would think is probably a big problem over at Central Dispatch. Not only do you have the emergency calls, but you have calls like I just said. Do you see this thing helping in the long run on burnout?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to, first of all, reduce the number of calls that we take. Again, if you are in an emergency, you call 911, you're going to get a human being every single time, always have, always will. And our people are trained and ready to answer those emergency calls. We know exactly what to do in those situations. They're complex, they're difficult, but in the end, if you make the call, we'll dispatch the call out. The stress doesn't necessarily come from the emergencies as much. They can be very stressful in the moment, but the chronic stress comes from the non-emergent calls that we take that we have no ability to really help out with. Some of these calls that we get are just glorified Google searches. People want to know that, like a call that we get all the time is, my ex-boyfriend left his truck on my property. Can I sell it? Why are you calling us? This is something that you can just Google yourself. The answer is no, by the way, and you have to go talk to the Secretary of State. So these calls pile up, and that's where a lot of the chronic stress comes from. because some of these people get very insistent. I'm a taxpayer. You need to help me out. We're happy to send first responders, but if it's not an event that needs first responders, it really shouldn't come into dispatch in the first place. There are other places to go. So we spend all this time rerouting these calls to places like the Secretary of State, the courts, or other places. People actually call us all the time asking where to pay their property taxes. And Jim, just so you know, for public education, if there is an emergency where you need a first responder right now, call 911. If you don't need a first responder right now, it can wait till later, call our non-emergent line and we can route it that way. If you don't need a first responder, you shouldn't be calling dispatch. It's just not what we do. We dispatch first responders. We're central dispatch. Therefore, if it needs a first responder, call us.
Yeah, I just for reference, folks, and I know I had mentioned this before, 54,500 calls. If I remember when you made your presentation, I don't know how many hundreds of hours that is, but it's a lot, right?
Yeah, it is. And we did a study on these calls, and we believe that about 35% of them were actually routed to other offices that should not have come into dispatch. People didn't need a first responder for anything, or it's something that they can report it online, those kinds of things. You don't necessarily need a human being for these. So about 35% of those calls, and we figured it out that it's just a little under 2,000 hours that we think this program will be able to save us. And it's not that we're sitting around eating Bonzanu and crossword puzzles. This allows us to focus on the emergency calls that we're getting in that are true emergencies. And it also, people need to remember, we're very busy with the radio. So when the police officers, the firefighters, and the medics are out doing their thing, we're their lifeline. And so it's going to help that we're not on the phone when we don't have to be, and we can focus more on serving our first responders and helping people out that are in true emergencies.
I think of course, AI has been the big buzzword, I would say, the last 2 or 3 years. Some people know what it is. Probably, I would imagine most people don't know what it is. Sometimes there's a risk of, especially, I don't want to say it's in its infancy, but AI is certainly coming along. It's brand new to most people. Sometimes it gets oversold as a silver bullet. What do you think when you look at having it for the non-emergency calls? What do you see the limitations or trade-offs that you had to make when you decided to adopt the system?
Yeah, so I think one of the risk factors is that nobody likes to talk to robots, right? So we're all interacting with these kinds of systems all the time. If you call your bank or your financial institution, they probably have one of these things. And everybody gets frustrated with them, and you yell into the phone, representative, hoping that somebody will get on the line or hit buttons, just trying to talk to a human being. And so the risk that we're taking is that there's going to be some of that frustration with this. But I think it's mitigated by the fact that this isn't a normal commercial type of system. This is a system that's tailored for 911 emergencies. And when I tested it, we looked at the demonstrations here. We've been looking at this thing for a year. And one thing that I really noticed is that the I in AI is intelligence. And this system really demonstrated for me intelligence. It's just not looking for keywords. Most commercial systems are waiting for you to say a department name or somebody's name that you need to be routed to. If you're calling your bank, maybe you just say teller and you get sent to somebody. This system does way more than that. It analyzes a transcription of the call and can understand context and syntax, and it can actually be trained what to do with these types of calls. Not only that, but what I think is really extraordinary is this system can recognize distress in your voice. So even if you're not using a keyword or saying something that sounds like an emergency, just the fact that you're worked up will cause the AI to automatically switch it over to 911. And that's a higher level of service than people are getting right now.
Yeah, certainly. I tried to call my dental insurance and I kept hitting the thing. And you're right. It didn't understand the emotional context, which I was trying to get something done. Okay, so the AI comes in. It's obviously the AI for the non-emergency calls. And it's transcribing calls, obviously, and the non-emergency calls. How long do you guys hang on to the transcripts? People always worry a little bit about privacy with these systems. For example, not so much on the emergency calls. I'm sure there's a state statute somewhere that says you got to hang on to them for a certain length of time. But what about the non-emergency calls? How long do you going to hang on to the transcripts for those?
So it's a really nerdy answer there, but the state of Michigan has something called a retention schedule that determines how long we need to hold on to any recordings. And a new one is about to come out, but I believe that's going to come out to be 90 days. And then we're just going to program that to purge any of those calls after 90 days. But that does bring up an interesting safety concern that people should have. People really should have this on any of these things. And that is, where else is my data going to? Data is the big thing that these AI platforms run on. They have fed the entire internet to ChatGPT and OpenAI, and they want more and more. And so these are ChatGPT and these different types of AIs are something called large language models. And what these things are doing is they need more and more information to learn and to train. If you type anything into these large language models, it is available throughout the world. So please be careful putting any of that info out there, because they use what you put in there to train other AIs that train other AIs that train other AIs. And so all of a sudden you have possibly some sensitive data that's all over the place. Our system will not do that. This vendor who sells this system is going to give us our own platform that is isolated from anybody else's platform. And so we're going to train it to understand our procedures and those kinds of things within our own system, but it's not going out all over the world like the others are.
Super. I think people will be glad to hear that. Okay, let's reel forward. We got I don't want to call it a trial, the $62,000 deal, but let's say, and I'm assuming it will be a success. What's your vision now, Corey? You're on top of this stuff. What's your vision for how this technology can be used in your dispatch department, or maybe even extend it out a little bit beyond that?
Yeah, so what we're really looking for is to provide a higher level of service for the community. Right now, if there's a major crash, a huge fire, a storm, those kinds of things, we are overwhelmed on the 911 lines. If we have 5 people working and 6 calls coming at once, we're struggling to get to all of them. So what happens is the non-emergent line just gets shut down. You'll get a automated message that says, call back later on 9. If you have an emergency, call 911. If you don't have an emergency, call back later, because we can't get to those calls. Now, at least with this AI system, people will still be able to interact with an AI agent who can detect emergencies and get those over to our 911 lines. So I think that's a higher level of service than what we're able to give right now, because in a big time storm, we just can't get to those non-emergent calls at all. At least you'll be able to talk to the AI now. That is the biggest benefit, I think, to the community. And then also the benefit of, instead of talking to a grumpy dispatcher that doesn't want to help you with your property taxes, the AI can actually redirect you where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, and I think in the future, as AI begins to develop and we get into AGI, which is the automated general or artificial general intelligence, I think you guys are going to find bigger uses for this stuff where it saves on people, but it gives better service, which is exactly what you wanted to do, right?
And one of the things that we believe that we'll be able to teach this thing to do is fill out forms. So there are times that you can call in. For instance, the sheriff's office has certain types of events where all you need to do is fill out a form and give that to your insurance company or whatever it is that you need to do. You don't actually need to speak to an officer. You can just fill out this online form. The AI will actually fill it out for you and give you the number that you need. And you're not wasting anybody's time. It's a robot. It has nothing better to do than sit there and talk to you. And so doing things like that, I think is pretty cool. Sometimes senior citizens especially will struggle with doing things online, filling out forms and those kinds of things. And this robot that we hired will be able to just help them out. I think that that's pretty cool. And we'll be able to expand that to several other areas too, as we start to play with this thing.
Yeah, I think that's it. Playing with the thing and getting familiar with it. It's a big step forward, Corey. And I send you a lot of congratulations for taking that step forward. It would have been a lot easier to try to hire another central dispatch person and then wear them down after 6 months. And your big trial is coming up here in a couple of weeks, the Cherry Festival.
It's actually starting this Friday. So we are already setting up our command post. The air show is going to be on Saturday. The Coast Guard open ramp is going to be on Friday. So we're actively preparing and getting ready. This year, we have a brand spanking new technology that we're using, which is a geographic call routing. That means that if you call 911 within the Cherry Festival itself, you're not going up to the 911 center. You're going right down to the command post where we have a couple of dispatchers down there helping out all the first responders that are down there, and they're able to interact directly with the first responders that are on scene to get you the help that you need. And it's going to relieve some of the call volume from our 911 center, which is pretty swamped this time of year.
Yeah, I bet you it is. Corey, great job. Hey, listen, I'm a citizen of Grand Traverse County, so I'm applauding this thing. This was great. And your presentation was extremely good too. As soon as I heard it, I was glued to watching it and listening to it. It was extremely well done. And I think I also applaud the commissioners. They ask great questions and you got the program going, and that's the big thing. But I certainly thank you for being on the program.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I also appreciate the commission's support and the public support for this program. I think it's going to work out well. And you mentioned that you're a citizen of Grand Traverse County. I can tell you 100% that you have a great 911 system here supporting you. We hope that you never have to call 911. But if you do, you get a great team and a great system that's going to get you the help that you need.
Thank you very much, Corey. You have yourself a great day and stay cool. Stay cool. It's cool now. Hopefully it won't get warm again. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Jim.